I'll just tell you some of the atrocities that I saw. I saw a mass grave of 126 women and children that were killed by machete to keep it quiet. And they were buried in a shallow grave. The only reason I found them, my buddy and I found them, is we found a mummified baby that for some reason no animals touched. And I do not understand why. It's almost like the animals themselves were horrified at the event and wouldn't even feed on this little corpse. And then shortly after that, my friend was killed. He was shot and then burned to death. And I had to carry him for 3 days out of the jungle. And then I have seen children that were too young to rape, chicken wired onto a fence so the ants could eat them alive and their parents could hear. I've seen this myself. They're called the FARC in Colombia.
America. No, I haven't seen what you've seen. I haven't seen that. And I'm glad not to have, because I think that I would want to kill every single motherfucking one of those people the moment that I came across them. I'm sure that's a natural instinct that most men would have.
Yeah, that's what I
And,
heard. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen my share of crap, but not like that. I mean, I don't know what to, there's nothing that I can say that's going to make that right for me, for the audience, because that's all too real and that's what you hear about, but you can't actually internalize it until it's right there in front of you and you can smell it and you can feel it. It's the same thing when you are around the immiserated people that have been in these communist run countries, that you can sense it, you can feel there's a coldness. There's a coldness in the air the moment you step into Moscow.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just, and this is not even facing death. This is the posthumous time, the moments that have come after millions of people have been killed. When you're in Cambodia and you pick up bone fragments off of the ground of the killing fields, that's about as close as what I've come to what you've told me. And to think that those were babies, and I have 3 young kids right now with a 4th on the way, and to think that those were babies that were trying just to live and to be raised by their parents, and they were just slaughtered with their head against the trees because they weren't worth wasting a bullet on. And so they just smash their heads into the trees. And it's like you go there and you see the skulls piled up high. I mean, that's not close to what you've experienced.
It's
But
close
yes,
enough.
and this is what we must protect. We must protect the freedoms that we have. Otherwise, we're going to end up like that. And you're already seeing the divide in America between the crazy left and sane people. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah. I spent, a couple of decades in the military, and I loved every minute of it. And to me, a soldier is green. There is no color. It doesn't matter. They're green because they're your brother in arms. They're your sister in arms. So where they come from, their creed, their color, their religion, anything like that, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference because you put them in uniform, you train them to be a soldier, you get put in the same situation as them. They have your back, you have theirs, and there's a brotherly love that it transcends anything that I've seen outside the military. And when I see the division in America, it's incredible because in the army back in my day, which isn't that long ago, you were one color, you were green. And if you had a racist problem, you were thrown out or you were put in a position where you didn't do anything good. You know, basically a mess cook or a mess cook helper for the rest of your career, and you weren't allowed to retire. I mean, the unity of the military forces and the brotherhoods that I lived in perpetuates to me this day. I don't see color at all. I see the character of personality. I care the character of spirit. I sadly, since I have seen so many killers, um, I can walk down the street right here in Napa, and I can see somebody, and I can see them. I can see they're one step removed from being a murderer, child murderer, rapist, the worst of humanity. And you know why they're not? Because they know they'll get in trouble in this country.
They don't know that too much anymore, especially in California.
Yeah, that's true. That's
I mean,
very
they're
true.
letting go criminals that have literally killed people. They like plead it down to a jaywalking violation and give them the $25 fine and say, be on your way. I mean, that's a slight exaggeration, but it's
Just a
not too
little bit.
far. And
Well, that's why I study ocean. That's why I'm a sub pilot. That's why
there's a
I
question that I have to ask you.
yes,
What is it? And if you can describe it in words, because you might not be able to, because a lot of times I think that we all get feelings about people and we don't know where that data is coming from. But how, given your experience, can you look at somebody walking down the street and be able to see them as that one step removed from a killer?
you know, a killer is somebody who has very little or no remorse, and they have the mental capability to disconnect from people, and they have the physical prowess to do it. You don't need a lot, depending on what you use as your weapon, but you need enough. And you can tell by the way they square off and position themselves to strangers. You can tell with the confidence on how they down look at somebody. And you can tell by the eye contact when you lock eyes with theirs. You can see it instantly. Once you've seen it, like the first time I ever saw that was in Colombia. And it was, I won't tell you the rest of the story, but he didn't live long. But you can't unsee it. And you recognize it instantly from that point on. And I have seen it in Bosnia. I've seen it in Somalia. I've seen it in Central and South America. I've seen it in Iraq. And it you're never wrong. Once you see it, you know what it is. And again, you're looking square in the face of evil because they disconnect from the cause and effect of life. In other words, if I do a crime, I'm not going to get in trouble. Ooh, I can play. Now, what's the level of play? Sometimes it's creative to enough of being the most sick, murdering bastard you can imagine.